Remote management. Remote management is touted as a modern, innovative, creative, and strategic approach to managing your business. But of course, you may have other views depending on how much you have grown accustomed to the traditional method or ways of managing your organization. But let me try to give some definition to the topic that we're going to be discussing today, and that is remote management or remote leadership. This is non-physical and essential management tools for micro, small, medium, and large-scale businesses. The perception that many tends to run away with is that remote management is only for the big at heart. But guess what? When you understand this concept well enough, remote management can even work for micro, small, and medium-sized businesses. And with time, we will do a deep dive into those concepts today so as to ensure that you have the right information. For some, remote management perhaps may be the art of making money while you are asleep. We'll look at some of those concepts today. So perhaps you can adopt some of these practices to how you do business. Another concept, remote management, influences how you manage human, technical, and capital resources to achieve the business strategic objective. So there's a lot for us to cover today. And I just want to say that there's no way that we can exhaust this topic today, but we will take elements of this topic, we will expand on it so as to ensure you have essential information that can possibly help you make smarter business decisions that can help you to significantly up level the cash flow of your business. Now, I have a team of dynamic personalities here with me to embark on this interesting conversation. I have Shivani Sinarayan and Shivani Sinarayan. Hi, Shivani, how are you? Shivani is a project management practitioner and she is an expert in this field. She has lots of experience dealing with remote management. So here is where you're going to be getting some of that experience. Shivani is also a lecturer. She's a business owner, very dynamic personality. Along with Shivani, we have Clement Frank. Clement Frank, he is an economist by profession. He is tremendously passionate about leadership. So if you want to know more about leadership, Clement Frank is the person for you to talk to. And he's also a rising star as an author. A new book is going to be on the market very soon. And along with that, we have no other than Peter Go Scott. And Peter Go Scott, he is passionate about people because one of the things that he often say is that if you don't have your master plan for life, you're really not ready for living life. And the big question I want to ask you today, do you have your personal life master plan? Do you have your family life master plan? Do you have your community life master plan? Do you have your corporate life master plan? All of these plans are essential. If you don't have these plans, it means that you might be a ship at sea, and wherever the ebb and flow of the tide goes, you go with it. And that's the last thing that you want. You want to be anchoring your position of strength and know that you are in control. And having your master plan is what's going to give you super control over your dreams, your hopes, and your aspiration. So when you have big dreams for business and for life, the person to talk to is Peter Gould Scott. Peter, you can't beat that introduction, my brother. Peter feels got fat there, man. Hey, my friends, how are you guys? How are you guys?
Fantastic,
We're
fantastic.
going good after that introduction of Peter. I was thinking, I'm listening to the radio. I'm on the telly.
Okay, that means I'm getting better and better. I'm mellowing with age, right?
Oh,
I'm not having no age talk, right? I'm not having no age talk. I'm having no age talk with you and Peter after I came in here this morning.
Okay, my guys, always fun to be with you guys, man. All right, today we're going to be having a pretty interesting conversation. We're going to be talking about remote leadership, and some may refer to it as remote management. I find this topic to be pretty interesting, although it's not a common conversation that we normally have. But it reminded me of the days when I was doing my Cambridge program. One of the things that we look at is management role and leadership style. And of course, we had to look at this across many different scenarios. Today, what I want to do is to just attempt to look at this subject to see how it can bring benefits to not just the big giants in business, but also to micro, small, and medium-sized businesses, and perhaps the large-scale businesses also. Because one of the things that we were taught is how do we adopt relevant technology to aid in the business development and process. Now, I'm going to just throw this out for now, but when I come back, what I want to do is to expand on this concept so as to ensure that the listening audience they have a clearer understanding of what we are talking about. Some of the things that I will look at is indeed management role and leadership style. I will define uh, what is management role. Um, Managers, you have five specific roles to be playing. And even when it comes to remote management or leadership, those management role apply. So the way you manage the physical space, there are some commonality with how you manage physical space and how you manage non-physical space. But again, there are major differences in how you also manage the non-physical space. But at the end of the day, the management tools and principles still applies. We will also look at leadership and style, definition of some leadership style. We also have an expert here, uh, which is Frank, to talk to us also about leadership style, perhaps in the context of remote management. We will do a deep dive into that. And what I will also introduce is the concept of what is proactive leadership. So there's a lot of to cover here today, and I trust that we have enough time to examine all of them. But I want to now open up the floor. I want to start with Shivani, and I want to ask Shivani, what does this topic means to you? Remote leadership. How have you seen it bring advantage to various type of institutions? And would you recommend it for rising stars in business? Shivani.
Thanks, Gary. Remote leadership always a very, very interesting, a very personal topic for me as well. So I welcome the opportunity to share conversations and to hear from Frank and Peter as well on this topic that impacts all of us in our daily jobs and as we go through life and what we want to achieve. Now, I'll give it from many different examples. In facilities management, what a concept that I was working with is that everybody should sit together, right? So we sit together, meaning if you are the manager or you are the boss or the person in charge, you sit with your team as much as you can, right? And so doing that concept, originally the manager will be in a separate office. So I was changing it up a little bit by saying that I would be in an environment with everybody, with the low level, the high level, everybody. We'll all sit together, open plan. So then definitely that is not remote. That is all of us together, right? All of us together. And there's so many advantages I found of using that concept because it brought a more togetherness. Everybody was in one room. If I needed to find out a particular problem, I didn't have to call on the phone. I just shouted from one end of the room to the other, right? And you found out everything. Meetings were very quick. You didn't have long meetings because you had everybody one time. However, you have to see if there were what are some of the advantages of using that versus these other type of techniques now, which is remote management, which is I could be in Starbucks, I could be in rituals, I could be where I want to be. I could be in Guyana, and I'm running a team where persons are based all across the world. So do we see advantages of using that technique? Now, for me to start that conversation or to continue with it rather, I'll say your favorite part, Gary, is data. Do you have data that will really guide us to know if this is going to work? I saw, during a time where we moved into a remote workplace, right? Where we moved into a remote workforce. And when that occurred, there were some challenges. We saw some challenges. The first challenge was you couldn't reach people, right? You really couldn't reach people. People were not answering their phones. This was in the beginning of using this concept. And there were other persons who answered their phones all the time, who were connecting with you all the time. So you have to have data, you have to have structures, you have to have systems in place. Why do you think it didn't work with trying to reach the person? It didn't work because it didn't have processes and structures in place. I came out of conversations with CEOs, and they were saying, Shavani, this is not working because we can't reach the people. People not, is it really going to have productivity, that they can work from home? What are the advantages of using these things? I always say to people, we are just making sometimes these broad statements like that, but how do you know that you don't have productivity? Do we have what is referred to as a benefits management plan, as I keep talking about? Do you really look at the benefits of doing something, or we just talk? A lot of times you just say, but the productivity is not there. How are we measuring the productivity? Is it then that you understand whatever your job is, that the end result was to increase productivity by 10%? If you're telling me these type of things, then you can show me if the remote management way or the remote leadership way is really contributing to that. But if you don't have that benefit, or you don't understand the outcomes, how could we speak like that? So to say if remote leadership is working or not, it must be tied into a benefit system, data, outcomes, real things that you can compare it to. So I found that was lacking. When people say that it's not working, that is lacking. You don't have the processes in place to determine what is productivity for you. So you cannot say somebody's just not answering their phone or productivity is low. Have you measured the productivity? You haven't even measured it in the old way, which is this face to face and everybody coming to meet. You haven't measured it then. So how do you know it's not working now in a remote way? So the first part of this conversation really is to say, do you have the structures and the processes in place for something like this? That a manager will not up and say a statement like that, which is, people not working. They're not working when I don't see them, right? Do you have a system to measure the productivity? So that's one aspect to look at. Do you have your correct system in place? So face to face, a lot of people were so accustomed with that, especially in my area, which was facilities management. You can't fix the bulb, from your house. Well, now you could do it if you have systems and structures in place. A number of years you could do that because you have sensors and you could do things from your phone and shut down your building right from your phone. So it can be done. You don't need people to go physically to site. But saying something like that, another point you have to understand is culture. We want to do a lot of things. We want to implement all of these systems. But do you understand culture? Is the culture of your organization prepared for this? Culture, main point for me with remote leadership and remote management, and the first point that we mentioned was, do you have a structure in place to really manage productivity? Do you know what are the benefits if you go this way? If you don't know, and the majority of times when people speak like that, they don't even know it from the old face to face way, what they want to achieve. So if you don't know what you want to achieve in terms of your people and productivity, you have nothing to compare, and everything you're going to be speaking will be very subjective, and it will come across as if you are, criticizing your employees. You're saying that they're not working. So these are my first 2 points, Gary, in the importance of remote leadership. It can work, of course. This is a strategy that can work. There are a lot of different points that we want to mention, and as you said, we will talk a lot more. But to open up the conversation to whet people's appetites for more, really, is to share culture must be ready. There's a whole organizational culture. Are we educating people properly on it? Do you have clear expectations? Something like this, you must have clear expectations. Do people understand productivity and what is the end result of it? A simple example, again, they asked me to fix a pump at one of our sites that I'm running. And I said, but my whole team was saying, but what's the purpose of that, Shivani? We're moving all the people from that building. Why do we have to fix the pump for? So benefits wasn't tying into that project. Only when you tie in benefits into anything, people then can understand something. So it's part of my literature really is to show persons and to provide more deep dive into outputs, outcomes, and benefits. Anything that you want to do, it could be solved in those three terms. What are the outputs? What are the outcomes? And what are the benefits? So remote leadership, to before you give you go over to Frank, really is to ensure people understand what are the benefits of doing something like this. Is it really going to increase productivity? Do you have the data for it? What about your structures and your processes? We want to jump into all these things. Do you have it? And the example, I'm talking because I'm remembering something. We have a structure and a system to convert a lot of work into a remote workforce, and everybody was so shocked that when it wasn't done properly. Now it wasn't done properly, as I was saying to people, is because of culture. Culture impacts everything. You want all the systems, you want all the structure, you want all the processes, but culture wasn't ready for that. And when I say ready, you have to prepare people. It's a change management. So two main points was culture and productivity. How do you measure the benefits of it? Thanks, Gary. Many more things to say.
Great share, Shivani. A number of important points was tabled. Just a couple of things that I want to say very quickly. From experience and data, we are seeing that the method of approach that you're going to use to manage a remote or virtual platform, the tools are going to vary. It's not universal. So when we talk about understanding management role in this context and leadership role in this context, it's important to recognize that one fit is not going to work for the entire ecosystem. But I'm just going to chime in a little bit on what Shivani would have said there. Yes, I believe that setting clear goals and having targeted performance outcome is vital. And understanding systems, the entire process has to be properly systemized for this to work. I will, with time, I will try my best to expand on all of this. Um, some other things that needs to be looked at, you need to select very strong team leaders, because in this particular case, they are not at your physical location. You want to ensure that you have the right leaders that can influence the desired results. You must also focus on the placement and the acclimatization of the human resource, which means that there may be some prolonged period of training so as to ensure that they get the concepts and they can apply themselves effectively in accordance with the cultural and strategic business objectives that you may have. There's the other concept that we have to add in here, monitor and evaluation. Now, there are differences between monitor and evaluation. Someone may monitor, but do they have the skill set to evaluate if the completion criteria are being reached? And then you need to have what we call the control mechanism in place. Again, there are some systems that are actually set up where, because of the adaptation of technology, it literally minimizes or create the ease of managing these virtual spaces. So there's a lot to go into. This is not a program that we can exhaust in one, two, or three settings. There's a whole lot of points. But I'm going to pause here for now, and I'm going to ask Frank to chime into this from a leadership standpoint, from a management standpoint, from an economist standpoint. So there's a lot of room to have conversation on this topic of remote management. Frank, all to you. You're mute.
Thank you, Gary, and my esteemed colleagues. Thank you very much. For listeners, um, for some of us, remote leadership could be a new term. However, it is not. It's been around for a while, and it has, in this 21st century, become more of a thing, especially in the developed world. It is very hard enough to motivate and inspire a team, especially in tough times. But it can seem almost impossible when you have to do that from behind a computer screen, many miles away from everyone involved. Maintaining the same high performance standard as an in person leader is a challenge, but still, it's crucial for the success and morale of your team. So, how do you become a remote leader that people actually listen to? The answer lies in having a multifaceted approach to connection and communication. Let's look at how to create a culture of trust. Stay connected with your team and fire up the passions of your followers, whether they're nearby or far away. So, remote leadership means leading a team that's spread over different physical locations, and it's a process of managing employees and teams remotely, both in the administrative sense and the inspirational sense. So, leadership is about guiding people toward a common goal and inspiring them with the motivation to achieve it. Can you do that remotely? Absolutely. Leadership isn't constrained to a particular office or space or workspace. It just takes a few tweaks to your standard in person approach. So, remote leadership is the same as any other leadership, but it's enabled by technology. However, it's not defined by technology. And to make it work, you need an even stronger focus on people and culture than usual. Since the 2020s shift, this massive shift to remote work, which was followed by the emergence of a hybrid work model, the role of people managers has evolved, and they have built closer connections with their employees than before to make up for the lack of face time. A, a bulb, a light now is that what I was spotted are more patterns that we can discover in our hybrid and remote work trends. And so it comes with all challenges. Whether you have to be rethinking systems and implementing new tools, the challenge of building relationships between team members, the challenge of assessing employee performance, preventing burnout and overwhelm. How do you deal with employees' social isolation? How do you avoid silos? How do you overcome the lack of face-to-face supervision? And how do you deal with the lack of access to information? Time is too short for me to go through all of that. But what I can say is that there are four effective remote leadership styles for those virtual leaders, because unique personality types bring a variety of traits to leadership roles. It would be rather dull if everyone were the same, but different leadership styles are appropriate for different business types. Here how some of them can play out in a remote environment. The participative leadership. A participative leadership style means involving your team in decision making, creating a sense of ownership and responsibility. In a remote setting, managers can enable participation with online tools such as polls or surveys to gather input from teams and members of teams, or by regularly checking in with them for feedback on ongoing projects. Then there's a transformational leadership. It's all about inspiring and motivating your team by setting a clear vision and motivating them to work towards it. So, as a remote leader, you can inspire and motivate via video conferencing or virtual meetings to communicate your vision. And you'll need to talk frankly to ensure everyone shares your common goal. Here's a tip. Transformative leaders should pay close attention to onboarding new hires so they can understand the organization's vision early. Then there's a servant leadership. A servant leader focuses on putting the needs of the team above all else. So in a remote setting, a servant leader would regularly check in with the team to see if they have all the resources and support whether they need and address any issues that may arise. And finally, there's a situational leadership. And as the name suggests, a situational style relies on tailoring your approach to fit the unique needs and abilities of each individual on your team. In a remote setting, the situational leader would adjust communication methods for those who are introverts as well as the extroverts, and provide different levels of guidance and support depending on each employee's capabilities. So, what qualities do they bring? One, they build trust. Two, they communicate clearly. Three, they learn and observe. Four, there's organization and plans carefully. Five, they set specific goals and outcomes. Six, they remain adaptable. The seventh one is that they keep meetings on track. Number 8 is that they inspire positivity. 9, they bring people together. 10, respect cultural sensitivities. 11, promotes often feedback. And finally, you show compassion. Thank you, Gary.
All right. That was indeed a great share, a lot of information. Frank, you made a very important point, however, and that is that the concept of remote leadership and management is nothing new. I can recall many years ago when I did my Cambridge program, we were introduced to some of these concepts, but guess what? Where we are today with remote management is way beyond what the classroom would have taught at that time. However, to keep us on our toes, one of the things that we were taught about is keeping abreast of relevant technological development and adopting relevant technology to the organization to advance the whole process of remote management. Now, I'm saying this against the backdrop that with modern technology today, you have artificial intelligence for us to talk about and for us to include into the conversation. And this is what I'm saying is a topic that we cannot exhaust. For example, when we talk about remote leadership and remote management, this can relate to the transportation sector. When we talk about supermarkets, all right, and super malls, these things has been outfitted with what we call modern technology automation. So when we look at uh, developed economies like China, some of the things that you see, you're able to go into a store, not using cash. You might be using some coin. You might be using your fingerprint. You might be using facial identification, and with that, you're able to access products and from those super malls. That is significantly advancing remote leadership, remote management. You don't have to have the counter staff to listen to your request and then go fill out your order. You have it technology that automates the modern technology automates the entire process. You're seeing it now in terms of restaurants. You're seeing it now at the airport. You're seeing it now in even the police force. So it has significantly expanded with the use of artificial intelligence. I know that I just opened up something else there. We don't have to go into that today, but we'll talk about this some more and expand on this over a period of time. What I will want to do when I come back after Peter is to bring the conversation to a point where we can actually see how remote leadership, remote management is being deployed by some of the big companies, and how this can also be deployed by even micro, small, and medium sized businesses. When we look at things that we're using today that most parts of the world they're more familiar with, like drop shipping, drop shipping in of itself is remote leadership. When we look at affiliate marketing in of itself are element of remote management, because I don't have to do it physically, but because of some of the systems that Shivani would have talked about, they're able to adopt the right systems, leverage it to the advantage of the organization. But there's so much of talking points that we need to expand on, because sometimes when we say systems, the average man don't understand it. So as time progresses, we'll break all of this down so they are understanding how to apply these systems in terms or in the context of remote leadership to help move a business forward. Peter, I'm going to come to you. You can probably just, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the importance of all of this.
Thanks again, Gary, for opening up this opportunity for those who are hungry for learning and understanding, individuals who are seeking ways to enter the marketplace, or individuals who are in business and seeking to really to sharpen their path into business. This is a space that they can definitely come and get some information, and in particular to the topic that we're talking about, remote leadership or remote management and service delivery. Well, what I've found in the area of our human growth programs is that it swings both ways, because on one level, what we do find is that entire industries has been replaced by remote services and remote management. You did mention transportation a while ago. That has impacted to some degree. When we look at, you can go to certain areas here in New York City. When you go to certain stores, you do not have cashiering. The cashiering industry has been totally been removed. Certain customer services in brick or mortar service delivery areas, that has been completely been removed. But then on the other side, I think where human growth is concerned, remote learning or remote management and leadership has really been a plus for human growth and development, because now any individual can compete with large enterprise. It has leveled the playing field to the degree that any individual with a great idea or with a product that is effective in solving problems, they individual can get into their basement and they can compete effectively well with any of the major players in the marketplace. So what we would say is that where individuals are concerned is that there are basically three things that I see that has to be done for that individual who trying to get himself out there in the marketplace. And the same is can be said for even large enterprises because they are doing the same thing. The virtualization of their product services and the distribution of what they do. The understanding that understanding the virtual processing. People now has become virtualized because here we are, and as Shivani was saying a while that in the office face to face, but now we have a situation where everybody is now virtualized. We are standing here and we're talking to each other, and each of us, we're from three different countries, thousands of miles away from each other, but yet still we are able to interface and still yet communicate well. But what I did find was at the onset that there were individuals who were so much what I say they refused to let go of the face to face, and they just felt like they had to be in the presence of somebody to be able to communicate effectively. So there was a retraining of the mind that has to they had to go through in order to recognize that we can still communicate well. So I would say that there has to be a virtualization, if I should call it that, where there has to be a reprogramming of mindsets for remote leadership and management. It requires a change in mindset. It requires that individuals understand that, all right, there has also to be a repackaging of our presence. So the mindset has to be changed, and then you have to realize now for us to be effective in communicating effectively to maintain trust, then now there has to be a redressing of of our presence. So we do understand that standing before a camera, how do you effectually deliver your presence in such a way whereby your audience still receive your presence and understand your energy that you are putting across so that you can still be trusted as a service delivery person. So all of these elements can be done when individuals begin to retrain themselves. What also is important as well that individuals can understand that now anything can become a product. Just about anything can become a product, even even physical products, because there is a story or there is a design that goes into physical products that can be virtualized, that individuals need to know how this ought to be managed or how it ought to be used. And that itself becomes a product by itself or can be upsold for individuals. So the entire process of virtualization through remote management and leadership becomes something that now I say it causes individuals, even those who are threatened, because at one time I myself was even thinking that with the rise of AI, that it is a threat to human growth and development. But then I realized that no, it is not. It becomes a tool that any individual now can become a more individual of solution, where every and any individual now can identify their problems in the marketplace and now create the solution that they can now give, just like any large enterprise.
All right. I'm going to turn to Frank because I know Frank may have to slip out shortly. So I'll hand my spot over to you. But I just want to quickly say this. As we look at remote leadership, particularly when it comes to certain sector, like for example the airport sector, I could recall sometimes, I'm going through the airport and some things are just thrust upon you. You're accustomed having you know, the, the receptionist or the counter person deal with completing certain processes.
Mhm.
Now they would say, hey, there's a machine over there. You can check your flight. You can check all of these different things. And I think for senior citizens who are not familiar with the technology, it poses a challenge for them. As time progresses, perhaps looking at those challenges and perhaps tabling practical solutions and perhaps engaging with some of the stakeholders might be something for us to look at. But just food for thought. Frank, I'm going to come to you now and then I'm going to expand on some of the points I'd want to make. All to you, Frank.
All right, thanks a lot. Now, I really want to look at the cultural thing of remote leaders and to see how to create how to craft a culture of proactive connection. Because one of the main or major challenges of remote leadership is basically staying connected. And the best way to remedy this is to be proactive. Despite you relying on platforms to organize much of the communication, which sometimes can be a blessing, staying informed requires some good old fashioned human effort. Wayne Tummel, who belongs to the Remote Leadership Institute, he explains that if you accept the benefits of working remotely, you have a responsibility to your employer, your teams, and yourself to be informed, connected, and aware. Now, in the course of a remote working week, one can be in the dark about all sorts of important developments, and you might not get to hear what's happening in other departments or teams. While some things might make it into announcements, others you would typically find out through small talk around the office. So, to avoid this, what Wayne says is that we need to put in the effort and reach out. He says when we work remotely, we can get very self satisfied. We choose to ignore office politics, but then we complain that we don't know what's going on in our company, or we then hear about this problem that suddenly impacts our work odds. It was in all those company newsletters that you deleted without reading. To say nobody told me may be true, but it's also an excuse. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take on a load of extra work. All it means is that you must be proactive and plan your intra-company outreach. For example, if you plan 30 minutes twice a month to send emails or messages and invites to catch up with others in the company, a tip is that you should include also people you don't have a close working relationship with. They can sometimes be your most useful contacts, right? And so building an outstanding leadership team is enabling inspiration from a distance, which is only possible with the right people in place. And the best way to turn managers into leaders is to give them the tools and opportunities they need to thrive. So, with innovative training methods, automated meeting schedule, and customized training pathway, what you can do is just bring out the best in the remote leader. Right? One of the things I always say is that once you are a remote leader, your communication and by the skill, what is it, your the talent has to be on par because it is the thing that will drive you into productivity, higher productivity. It is the thing that will cause a closer knit, despite you're remote away, miles away, but it will be a close knit in the organization and among team members. Thank you, Gary.
All right, great share, Frank. I'm just going to try to simplify some of what we've been talking about and give some practical um, scenarios, and then I'm going to come back to Shivani. Um, as you know, remote management leadership has a lot to do with the non-physical management of the micro, small, medium, or the large scale businesses. This brings me to a concept that we call remote management and the service industry and modern technology automation. In this context, we can talk about centralized management because going virtual or going remote doesn't mean that you have completely eliminated centralized management. You also have decentralized management. Sometimes when we talk of remote, it sounds more decentralized, but it depends on the culture of that organization. Um, Shavani speak to culture early on. Um, we are just doing a high level overview on these topics. We need to cut it, go into it, and really expand it to bring more benefits to the audience. There's another concept that I want us to look at, which we wouldn't be able to look at today, is what we call modern technology and automation. How do we adopt modern technology and automate it into the organization? I'm going to give an example of that now. Now, think about having a virtual storefront. And what is a virtual storefront? This is a non-physical space. And this means that someone can go to social media, they can go to Shopify, they can go to some platform, some virtual platform, and see all of the goods and services that you have on display. That is a remote approach to managing your platform. The average person may say, hey, if I don't have a physical store, I can't sell. But with remote management, you can now adopt virtual spaces and you can now make your products and services accessible to the world. So let me break this down and just show what this actually looks like. So you're a business consultant and you have years of experience doing what you're doing. You might have conducted, you know, training and consultancy services to the wider business community, government agencies, NGOs. You might have even be an influencer. All right. So let's take these two particular, uh, subject matter experts, and let us see if we can, in Peter's word, virtualize this entire, their processes. So you are a professional. So what you do now, because you don't want to travel to Timbuktu or to travel around the world all the time, or because your demand is so high on you, you can't travel all over these places. So you build out virtual platforms that can perhaps work as effective or even better than you. So what does this look like? So you take your entire processes and you download it or upload it into a book. So you now have a book. So your entire process persons now can get from the book. What else does it look like? It looks at digitizing your content. So you take it from the book and you build it now into a digital platform. So let's take, for example, you take the book and the lessons in the book, you stand in front of your chalkboard board or your blackboard, and you basically roll out your training content. So just like how you would provide consultancy to specific areas of business, you develop your digital content in this same way. So because now you did develop the digital content, you can upload it to your virtual store. So persons can go to your virtual store and they can purchase and they can have all of that information from you, the expert in this particular field. You develop things like your digital wallet, so you can accommodate payments from across the world. You look at all of these things, and all of these things are virtual payment system. Monies are not being transacted in the physical form. It's being transferred in the non-physical form, the digital format. There's a lot of possibilities here because even you, a small consultant who is an expert at what you do, you can go remote. All right. You can even up because you're now a brand, you're an influencer. You're not just providing your consultancy services. Perhaps now you have apparels, and you're making apparels available on your virtual store. Perhaps now you're a brand, you're now doing clothing. We see people like, you know, a lot of celebrities are doing this now. The Kardashians are doing this now. They have been doing this for quite some times. And here is where now you have the affiliate marketing comes into play here, because the affiliate marketer, you may never see them. You may never, physically meet with them, but you have a team of persons who believe in your brand, who might be influencers, who are going to take your brand and they're going to go aggressively at attracting consumers to your virtual platform and optimizing your sales output. Drop shipping adds into this equation, because with drop shipping now, guess what this is saying? You can have persons from anywhere in the world representing your brand, and all they're doing is promoting your brand, educating the public about your brand. And you have certain systems set up to get the goods directly to the final consumers. All right. With technology, again, you can have, depending on your geographical location, you can have technology humanless, that is us transporting the product to your physical location. So there's a lot of, possibilities here when we start to talk about remote leadership of the then, remote leadership of now, and remote leadership of the future. There's so much for us to examine here. And I, I want to really thank Shivani for triggering this type of conversation. And we are now beginning to scratch the surface on this particular topic. But I want to pass control to you, Shivani, to really give us a little bit more of your perspective on the subject matter as we prepare to wrap up.
Thanks, Gary. Before I bring in a little more conversation, something triggered in my mind what Peter was saying actually when he was talking about us, right, and virtualization.
Yeah.
And it is very, very true that this is remote. I mean, all of us are remote. Yeah, we'll see each other, at times and stuff, but we do all our work remote, and everybody lives. I live in Trinidad, you're in Guyana, we have in New York, and Paul is from Ohio, right? So everybody is all over the place, as we say, all over the place. However, there is a very heavy collaborative experience with us. So if someone disagrees that it can't be done, I mean, look at us. It's a collaborative learning approach that we have. And I use the word collaborative learning really to start this part of the conversation, which is we call it a check-in, and I know Frank was talking about it. You just check in with your people. So if you're managing remote, the first thing people would say is, there's no kind of connection with people. And I totally disagree with that, because you can connect with persons even if you're far apart. There's technology now to do it. We're doing it here. So we call it a touch, you're touching in with the person. You're just checking in, right? It could be a 5 minutes conversation. Hey, how things going? And you learn something about the person the same way that if you're in a lunchroom physically and you have lunch with a person, you get to know the person. So even if in this environment we get to know each other, I know a lot about you already. I know a lot about Peter. I know a lot of personal stuff as well. You know a lot about me too. So it can be done. It's if the leader, the person in charge, as we say, the person in charge is creating the space for this to happen. So from my experience, it can happen. You do it what we refer to as a collaborative learning approach, which can be, you don't have to have 2-hour meetings and stuff to do this. It can just be checking in with the person, 10 minutes, where you want to learn something from each individual, and you call it a collaborative learning approach. All of that nice talk, it just means, hey, how you going? That's all. And you get to know so much about the person like that. So collaborative learning is a technique that I use a lot. I use it to get ideas from you. I use it to know a little bit about you in order to build a story that will capture you. Because everybody, will learn something differently and, will build trust. So you could build trust with me if there is something that gravitates towards you, especially in this type of environment where it's remote. How do you trust the boss that you're not seeing on a daily basis? So you can by you now have to create the environment that people could get to know you and get something to spark that the two persons could get a connection. And when we say connection, that you could grow with the individual as well to do much more empathy. So it's like what you were saying to Gary. You like when I speak, something is triggering your mind, right? So if I want to build trust with you, what I look at, you are somebody who's very heavy into academia and reading and books and stuff like that. So I will take a particular topic in my speaking to get to know you better in my conversation, and and therefore you bringing your point and bringing my point. And I do that because I want to get to know who the individual is, right, to build trust with individuals. It's the same thing with Frank. You could get to Frank through leadership talk. So it's building a story to connect with the individual. So when people say, and I keep coming back to it because it's so true, when people say it can be done, we are saying it can be done. It is being done just by trying to do collaborative learning and telling us, using a storytelling approach to connect with the person. You could connect with them through metaphors, through personification, through storytelling, which is connectivity. And that really helps you in remote leadership. It really, really helps you in remote leadership. I have seen that. I work with it all the time. Coming out of what Frank would have said too is the onboarding. When you onboard people, right, which is it's like this, you're onboarding people, whether it's students, whether it's staff, whatever you're doing, you're onboarding them strategies. What is your onboarding strategy? You need to explain the culture. You need to explain expectations. You need to tell people, hey, this is the environment that we'll work. This is how we're going to build trust. We're going to be checking in with you, even though you're in China and I'm in Jamaica. Wherever you are, we're checking in with the individual. We never sat together and drank coffee, but you all know I love coffee. So you get to know the individual. You create the space that it can happen. So when these systems are created, as we said, and the first part of the conversation was on productivity and how do you really manage your productivity by understanding the benefits, then this thing will happen. This is not going to happen if these things are not in place. So we can't just go and say, oh, yes, we have the computer. We could go on to Zoom, or we could go on to this platform, BAM, and everything is going to work well. No, you have to create the structure, the expectations, and the benefits for anything to occur. And then you you become more granular into it. So you get your high level and then you become more granular. In my environment, again, I have seen online education really, really, really just taken off. Online education, where people don't want to go physically in a classroom, and if you have good structures and you have good systems, people will use it. We call it self-paced learning or virtual live training as well. I teach project management as one of my specialties, and it is amazing to know that people don't want me to come back in a face-to-face environment. They love the online way, and it really opens up. This conversation is tying into monies and habits as well. To how do you get more money? It open up a new market, right? So it's not in a very close-knitted environment anymore where I could just probably teach 20 persons. Now I teach hundreds of persons using different technologies and self-paced learning. So definitely remote leadership can work. Remote management, but it comes down to the first stage of design thinking for me always, which is empathy. Get to know who your people, who are you serving? Frank mentioned servant leadership. Who are you serving? Only when you know that, everything falls into place. Everything falls into place. There are many systems. You said you want to do a deep dive into it as you go into another conversation. So many systems. We could talk about Asana. I use project management tools on a daily basis, and you could get all your information right there, which is Asana, Trello, Basecamp. There's so many. In online education, we use a lot of the learning management systems. One of my assistants, a project assistant actually, I do see her on a face-to-face, but we work. I know everything about her. She bought a car recently, and I know things about her, even if we're not sitting physically in an environment together. So it works. And how do you work it? empathy, getting to know the person, and then all the structures can come into play. Yeah, so those are my closing so far, Gary. Thanks for that, and thanks for the opportunity to talk on remote leadership.
Yeah, Shivani, you always open up so much of ideas at these talking points. Perhaps what we need to do at some point also, we'll talk about this, is to look at the advantages and disadvantages of remote learning. Now, let me just do a humorous part first, and then I'll get into some of the serious part. Um, we can segmentalize the importance of remote leadership. The part that I'm going to segmentalize and speak of the disadvantage of it, it's like when you go to meetings, physical meetings, you often have the smoothie and the cheesecake or the chocolate cake. So when we go remote, we all them things cut out your body.
Yes, 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 yes. I've been told that. I've been told that. Yeah. But then they might lose some weight. I tell people virtual cake and virtual coffee then.
Yeah, I got you. However, what I have found on the serious note is that, my life, sometimes my life is about meetings after meetings, meetings after meetings. I have meetings running back to back. That's how it really used to be, but guess what? I find that just doing the virtual meeting, doing meetings remotely, really helped me to save hours, because I may have to drive from one location to the other location. It's going to take me about 20 minutes to half an hour to get there. I have to drive back and then get prepared for a meeting. That's how I say it when I do virtual meeting. So we have a lot of advantages, and to talk about, perhaps we look at some of the advantages and disadvantages. And on my disadvantage, I'm going to definitely put my smoothie and my cheesecake and my chocolate cakes. Look at that. I also love that you also spoke about the online education platform, something to really do a deep dive into, because, what a lecture does. A lecture goes into the classroom and perhaps create repetition in terms of, articulating themselves around, an intellectual concept around the thesis. And what if this can be done virtually? I mean, I've sat into so many online educational platforms. I did some program at Rice University online. But let me say this, the lectures are exceptional lectures. And when they leave their content, for you to go into the content is content. And you have, along with that, you may have group studies. You have what we call the group dynamics that are coming into play in the learning equation. You have this collaborative learning approach that is also taking place among students. What some of these academic institutions would have done in going remotely, they have created a platform that makes going remote seems extremely exciting and savvy for the student body. So I would love for us to, as time progress, and perhaps once a week, we can do a deep dive into remote learning. We take particular sectors and we expand on sectors, because we can look at this from the service industry, and it applies to some service industry, but some other service industry, they may not necessarily be able to go full remote. Perhaps with technology development, they may be able to do so. And we can also look at the productive sector and how it plays into remote leadership. So there's a lot of food, meat here, Peter, the guys would say meat, right? Meat on the flesh, right? A lot of meat to chew on, right? So great talking points, Shabani.
You couldn't say
But
meat because I don't
yeah,
eat meat. I'm a pesco vegetarian. I eat fish and I eat seafood. I eat seafood. I don't eat chicken and pork.
okay, Shabani.
So you gotta know that about me as well. How to eat. You didn't know that before.
I hear you, Shabani. Peter, what I saw your closing thoughts, and I'm going to give Shabani the very last say on this, because today's her topic. Peter, your closing thoughts.
Yeah, Gary. There's three things that I want to bring across right now, and Shivani said that it can work, it can work. But what I want to let our audience know that it's not only that it can work, you have to get it to work, because if you do not get it to work, you will be left behind. The where life is going now, where technology is taking us now, and I'm going to say exactly what that is in the next 2 minutes. Okay. All right. I just got a text message. All right. So it's not a matter of if it can work. Um, you got to get with the times, because if you do not get an understanding of what remote management and remote leadership is, you will be left behind, because technology is already at the place for the next stage, the next sweep of onboarding that will be taking place. If you're not ready, you'll be left behind. So what we recommend individuals create is to design their virtualization master plan, and whatever that is, what that looks like. It is that you have to begin to manage your package. You have to manage your package. So one thing, you got to package and then manage that package. You got to first learn how to repackage your presence. So normally an individual, that you are conscious of when you meet somebody in person, that you manage the way how you dress, you manage the way how you speak, you manage your physical presence. Well, now you got to know how to manage your virtual presence. So there is a different energy when you're speaking to an individual face to face, as against an energy that you have to upbuild when you're speaking through the camera. Normally, when we're speaking, we have a monotone, we speak, but then if you speak in that tone to a camera, it becomes boring at the other end. So you have to now manage your passion. So now you have to uplift your energy. You have to be more intentional in how you communicate your message with a more passionate, deliberate way of getting across your tone and your communication, so that the person on the other line passing through the airwaves, they will still gravitate or understand or receive what you're saying with that high impact level that you're carrying out. So you got to manage your presence, you got to manage your passion, and then you got to manage you manage your programs. So everything that you're doing, it is a program. Everything, the computer is run by a program. Technology is run by a program. So you will now have to, in your virtualization master plan, you've got to create programs. You have to design a program on every and anything that you are doing, so that it can pass through the airwaves virtually. Now, the reason why I say that individuals has to make that change, because we are going through a transition. We are now living in the world of Web 2. This that we're dealing with now is Web 2. I'm here sitting on the computer. I'm sitting on this side of the computer of my phone, and I'm speaking to you. You're on the other end, and we're speaking on two different outlets. I'm on the front end. I'm on your back end. You are on my back end. Web 1, when Web 1 coming to be, we did not have this kind of an opportunity with Web 1. The only thing we could do on Web 1 is just to take information, pull information from off the computer. Go to a website and we take the information that is on the website. Now Web 2 give us this virtual connection. Now Web 3 is coming. And if you think Web 2 is hard to deal with, Web 3, I will put on some kind of a goggle and put on some kind of a gadget. And Gary, on Web 3, I will be able to shake your hand. I'll be able to see Shivana drinking her coffee, because now we'll be going inside of the computer, inside the interface to meet with each other. So what I'm saying is that we have to design our virtualization master plan. We have to know what is coming, what technology is bringing to us, and we begin to develop and meet it before it comes. Because if it comes and we are not prepared for it, then we will be left behind. Your business, your livelihood, your personal life, your family life, your community life, your corporate life will be left behind. So what we invite you to do today, do your research, do ample research on what technology, the opportunities that technology is bringing to us. And then again, Gary, I hear people like to gripe and complain that technology is this and technology is that, and technology is, robbing humanity and, causing people to lose their jobs, and the on and on and on. And that is only so because individuals refuse to upgrade themselves and to take advantage of what is on the table and utilize it as a tool that they can advance themselves. So get your virtualization master plan, design your virtualization master plan, and get to the program.
Yeah, good points, Peter. And the statement is correct. I do believe that millions of people who have become complacent and stuck in their comfort zone, protective of what they have achieved with technology, they are going to be quickly be replaced. I think what the mindset to have, because there's nothing that we can do to stop the changes that are taking place. It will take place whether we like it or not, but it makes sense to learn as much as we can learn. It makes sense to pivot as much as we can pivot. So as a community, as a business, you're not left behind. Um, Important thought to have, you need to keep abreast of relevant technological development. You need to adopt relevant technological development to your organization, and you need to leverage it for what it's worth. And the other thing that I want to say here, new jobs will be created with these modern technologies that they are going to be created. So you have to ask yourself, are you going to be part of that shift, or you're going to remain back in that stone age? If you are not adopting relevant technology as a part of your organization, if you're not discussing remote leadership in academia and across the board, you are not as competitive as you think you can be. Going remote in terms of the online training and academia, it really opens up your geography to a global market. You're no longer domestic, you can go global. So there's a lot. Shivani, you open up a whole lot here. So I'm going to pass back to Shivani to have her closing remarks on the subject. But this is a beautiful, beautiful talking points that Shivani has introduced today. Shivani?
So you see, Kari, how I knew you well. I knew that this is a topic that will spark a lot, right? That will spark a lot. So great. And something that, again, Peter started to speak about, which is the web and the virtual reality and the AR. So, we would say that we don't have connections with if you're doing things remotely. You might say, okay, well, how could I go and drink tea with the person? How could I drink coffee? And you just said it too. There are so many different platforms now that will be immersing us into the platform, that we meeting each other on the platform. We shake hands on the platform. I experienced one recently because we are looking at it to implement for my organization. I created my avatar. If you see, well, you all could guess how I create my avatar, right? In what I wanted to look and what I wanted to do and what I want to say. So my avatar, and what I told the persons who were giving us the demo, I said to them, I say, here, what is going to gravitate me is something that I want to see, right? That I can learn from, or that. So show me something of that I can now say, yeah, I'm going to use this platform. So any platform it doesn't matter with the technology, I have found what matters is if it's telling the correct story for connectivity. So what they realized what I wanted to learn, well, I'm doing a lot of work in it, which is sailing, right? And so, some risk management with sailing, and we have a couple of projects with sailing curriculum, and taking out people into a boat and stuff. So they knew that about me, and they planned a whole sailing talk and boat talk in the VR, where we actually went onto a yacht on the VR, and we actually, it was really good. But they got to me because of that. They got to know, well, what could make Shivani kind of want this platform. So it was really, really good to see that, and that's what I really wanted to share. When we use technology, really, you people will say that the technology is not working. It's really not working if there's no connection. You have the technology must connect a story with what you want. So if you were there and you're telling me about art or something in the breakout rooms, I'm not into art really, so that is not going to resonate with me. What resonated with me was the ability now to go on a yacht, because I learning about sailing and all the different techniques and stuff, right? And designing a curriculum. So, and there was water sports. So they connected with me, not through no platform. That's what I'm trying to say. And remote leadership, when we want to do that, that is what I want to leave with, for people to understand. It is a connection with people. Understand the person first, and then everything else. You will be able to create the best avatar. You will be able to shake hands, because I remember shaking hands with the individual, and we had songs and music and all these different things on the platform. So it was quite good. So thanks for that, Gary. A lot more to talk about, but it's really, really great stuff. Thanks for that.
Well, it's a lot. Um, I would definitely open up this platform for us to do some deep dive into that, because I believe it's a conversation that we should have. I do believe that many persons across the world, they are really not ready for this type of conversation, but I still think that we still need to have it. But I love when you refer to Avatar. I said, wow, Shabati's into this thing, Avatar.
And if you see me in my avatar,
and Peter is really, giving us some, exceptional information here. You talk about Web 1, 2, and 3.
virtualization.
Virtualization. I'm like, what? Shivani opened up some new, talking points here. She's bringing us some hidden talents, some
Yes.
dormant talents.
I get to know Peter, you forget.
Yeah, I often talk about this. There is technology that is out there that a wide cross section of the global community, especially in the middle income and developing economies, that there really not much conversation around these topics. But when it comes to marketing and sales and tapping into to your ideal audience, there's shifting that is taking place. Many of the young people today, they're shifting from the traditional platform into these virtual platform. And if your ideal client is young people, particularly in the case of academic institutions, and you are not thinking the metaverse and what is the metaverse, what is happening in this space, you're going to be missing out, because you have millions and perhaps billions of young people today who are gravitating, who have already gravitated to these platforms. And when you see big companies like top 100 companies that have literally built out their entire advertising campaign on these platforms, it's like, wow, they are aware of future trends, and they are ahead. They're in tune of it. So there's a lot for us to go into here, Shivani. We'll talk about it, and perhaps next Monday, what we can do is to build on these talking points some more. Really love it. For the audience, I want to thank the audience from across the world who have listening to this program. We have attracted over 30,000 subscribers in two of our platforms over the last 2 to 3 months. So I want to thank you for being there and supporting this platform. I also want to say this, that we have recognized that less than 25% of those who are viewing the programs who have subscribed. So we are seeing, I think it's about 70 somebody percent that has not yet subscribed. I want to encourage you to do subscribe. It will help you. One, you will be the first to get the information that we are bringing to you on a regular basis. And two, it will help the algorithm and it will help us. And I promise you that we will continue to bring you much more exciting information to really help you to make, cutting edge business decision. I want to thank my team today. I know Frank had to run out early, but I want to thank Frank, always committed to this process. I want to thank Peter for always coming out and support and putting his best foot forward to share and to give information. I also want to thank Shivani for being the leader that she is. As a female, I do want to throw flowers at her feet. She's an icon in our space. And I do want to recognize her for what she is. She's a forward-thinking person. And I see that she's very proactive, not just, not reactive. She's proactive. So I want to throw some flowers at your feet. I just want to share a little conversation that I was having with my kids last evening on the importance of women. I see sometimes women are beaten down by men. And I would say last night I was looking at it, I said, who all men came from? All men, who they came from? They came from women. So how can you beat down a woman? I just want to share that as some conversation that we had. I think that we need to uplift women more and encourage women more and to become the best version of themselves. So I'm happy that Shivani is here with us, so we can give her the respect and the support that she needs to keep doing what she is doing.
Great.
So with that,
Gary, there's
go ahead.
a song that I learned recently from I was watching one of those shows, America Got Talent, one of those, America, one of those shows, and the guy did very well. He sang this. I think he's from. I don't remember which where he's from, but he sang this song. It's a man's world. Yes, it's. I love that. It's nothing.
Hats off to the women. It's a woman's world. And I have the facts and the scientific proof to prove it, right? Shivani is saying nothing. We bigging up the women today, right, Shivani?
I'm not saying anything yet. I'm waiting for the data. I'm waiting for the data.
Take this as data.
Yes,
9 months to carry and a lifetime of nurturing. That is enough data.
Project into operations. Project into operations.
You got it. All right, guys, you have a wonderful day and see you guys soon. Do enjoy the rest of the day. Oh my God.